Good afternoon and welcome back for another interview with one of our members on Member Spotlight, and I am thrilled to have today with me Ashley Frank, who is the Executive Director of a nonprofit that perhaps you haven't heard of, but does a very, very strong and mindful deed here in Berks County, and that is CASA Berks County, and that's an acronym. And so I'm going to let Ashley, and with me also is her volunteer,
Heather Phillips.
And so we're going to jump right in because CASA is an acronym. And so Ashley, talk to me about CASA.
Sure. So CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates, and it is a program that is part of a national organization that was based out of Seattle, Washington, and the idea behind it was a family court judge thought, I need more information for the children who have been abused and neglected. And so he came up with the idea of recruiting community volunteers, training them, and appointing them to cases he presided over, and essentially said, go out, get to know the child, and report back to me. And the pilot program expanded, so now there's a program across the U.S. in every state. And here in Berks County, we've recently reestablished ourselves as a nonprofit. So as a nonprofit, we've been in existence since August of 2015, and currently now have 26 volunteers.
But the work was being done in the past.
Correct.
Am I right? By other sort of agencies that would be the umbrella over the work that you were doing. So you've got a number of volunteers, which sounds great. How many staff do you have?
It's me, and I just hired one part-time volunteer manager, and she just began on August 2nd.
Well, then it must be that you're doing a Herculean job, because just to manage and train, do you do all the training of the volunteers?
And they have to go through, the initial training is 30 hours, and it uses a curriculum adapted by National CASA, gets them prepared to kind of understand the nature and complexity of the child welfare system and the families and children that they'll be working with. And then after that 30 hours, they get sworn in by a judge and then can become appointed to a case where the child has been abused and neglected and is involved with children and youth. And once they get appointed to that case, they essentially, are provided a court order that allows them to investigate, what brought this family to the attention of children and youth? What are the needs of the family and children? And, what would be in the best interest of the children? And they get to know that by spending time with the individuals involved.
So let me ask you this, and then we'll jump in and we'll talk as a threesome. But who typically is the volunteer working with? Are they working with the child, and whoever the child is at this point in time perhaps in foster care, or has the child been placed with another relative? I would think if these are cases of abuse or neglect, that they're not necessarily with the parents. Would that be the case, or?
Every case is so unique. So a child can still be involved with children and youth in the court system, but still also be with the birth family.
Okay.
So we have a couple of cases where the child is still involved with the birth family. So the CASA volunteers working more with the birth family and the child in the home. We also have cases where the children are either in foster care or maybe a group home setting, often with older youth. And then, there is a big involvement around and finding of family. They'd like to keep the child with the family. So often they'll put children with kin, and it could even just be a friend too. Okay. So they try and find kin before moving to a traditional foster care setting as well.
So let's talk, Wendy, and jump in and talk about the volunteer situation and what you find.
I find that being a volunteer is very rewarding. I have the ability to make a difference in the kiddos' lives, and just to see families overcome obstacles. There are ups and downs with it, but we're there, CASAs are there for the children, and because we're independent, we're not reporting to, we're independent. So what's nice about that is that our focus is just on the best interest of that child. and then we communicate with the team, with the caseworker and the guardian ad litem, if there's any concerns or recommendations, and monthly, bi-weekly visits with the children in the case, meeting with the families, developing a relationship,
Sure.
And just celebrating the successes and working with the bumps in the roads, and just trying to do the best for that child or children.
So, how long have you been a volunteer?
I was sworn in March of 2016. Interesting fact is that I found out about CASA. I wanted to do some volunteer work, and I went on the United Way's website and I read about CASA, and I was able to get into the last info session before the official training began. So I'm very fortunate that I was able to be part of the first class.
So, we talked a little earlier about what your expectation today and what we as an organization that you obviously are a member of. So we have an obligation to help you to do whatever it is that we possibly can. And I think we talked about awareness of what this is. And I don't think there'd be anybody who would be in our audience that would not, absolutely think that this would be such a worthwhile opportunity. And also that this is a large need. I mean, sadly to say, it's probably getting larger. But that being said, there needs to be opportunity to find ways to help these families. So what would you say, Ashley, is probably the most important thing on your heart that you want to talk about, that this audience needs to hear?
The CASA volunteer opportunity is rather unique and does involve a commitment, but what's so neat about it is each CASA volunteer comes from all different backgrounds. There's not a specific skill set that you have to have or an education. You just have to have a passion to want to help these children succeed. And research shows that if these children have at least one significant one-on-one relationship with the caring adult, they'll be able to they have a much higher success rate to thrive. And I've seen with our current CASA volunteers, sometimes it's just the little things. When these children end up in foster care, they lose so much.
Sure.
And much of it is just normal experiences that we take for granted. I have a current CASA who is with an older youth who is in a group home setting, and she advocated for him to go out on a shopping trip because she was noticing he just had the old clothes and there was holes in it. And he was able to get a shopping trip, and he went to Walmart. And he comes back and says to the volunteer, "That was the best day of my life. I was able to get name brand clothing and new shoes. I've never been on a shopping trip." And to me, I go to Walmart or Target fairly often, and I don't think twice about it. And so here's these kids able to get some experiences, and it's because there was an individual spending more time with that child, able to see the need and able to advocate to have that need addressed. And there's so many children here in Berks County that could use a CASA volunteer to be able to pick out those individual needs, whether they're small or large, to help have that child create a new experience, something positive, and just to impact even a small part of that child's success. And so we host informational sessions at our CASA office. They're on the website at casaberks.org. Regularly. I'll also be willing to meet with individuals one-on-one to share about the program. And we also have an awareness breakfast coming up in October on the 26th.
So remember that and go to the website, CASA Berks.org, and you'll get information about that info session and that breakfast. Our time is running out, and this is just such an important topic. We talk about the fact that children are the future of the success of this community. And I think if every person would just do a little bit, we could overcome a lot of obstacles. Really quickly, what would you say is the average amount of time for a volunteer? I know it could be this amount and it could be that amount, but on average.
On average, our CASA volunteers give anywhere from 10 to 15 hours per month. It could look a little more depending on the amount of children involved, maybe in a sibling group, or it could be a little less. And often cases are kind of like a roller coaster, so sometimes there's just a more intense period of time needed and less preparation needed in other times.
And what is the length of time? So once you're finished, like you're volunteering and you've got a case, and then that one ends or it comes to a conclusion, and then you've got another case. So do you have some leverage in terms of saying, right now I've got life has turned busy, so I'm going to need to maybe not have 2 cases, or is there flexibility for volunteers?
There is flexibility. We do say if you want to commit to at least a minimum of 1 cases, it would be 2 cases at the most if they wanted a second one, but a minimum of 1 case until permanency is achieved.
Okay.
And that could be anywhere from 18 to 24 months.
Okay, so that's good to know.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And the reason for that is that significant relationship for that child. They're so used to people going in and out of their lives.
Sure.
So if the CASA can provide that consistency, that's sometimes the ultimate gift that a volunteer can
Wow. Now, honestly, if we're listening to this today and thinking, to change the direction and the life of a child with 10 hours a month is really not giving up a lot of our own time. Maybe it's a couple of television shows. Maybe it's just something that you don't even know where the time went. And here you could be using it for such an important cause. Nothing more important than the future of our children. So this is great. I am so glad you came in, educating me about CASA and also educating our audience. So I'll expect to have lots of people there at the breakfast, and maybe some more phone calls or emails. So once again, give your address. People want to get more information.
www.casaberks.org, and that's where you'll find information on our info sessions and our breakfast on the 26th of October.
Ladies, thank you for doing such a great work in Berks County. We really, really are blessed to have you, and thank you so much for being here today and talking about the story of CASA.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, you're welcome.